Well, many businesses are not able to reopen their doors during the COVID-19 pandemic. Even before COVID-19, many businesses were really struggling to just simply stay afloat. And those businesses are struggling due to the failure of reviving financial assistance, as well as producing enough money to pay their rent. The question is, how are things faring here in the Bronx? And in the Bronx, the small businesses are primarily African American, Hispanic, or immigrant owned. As New York City prepares to restart the economy, businesses are asking some questions, wondering whether or not they're capable to actually reopen their doors and then also resume services. And so joining us to provide their point of view on the matter, I'm joined by the president of the Bronx Chamber of Commerce, Lisa Sorin, and the executive director of the Third Avenue BID, Michael Brady, right in the borough of the Bronx, the heart of the Bronx. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks. So, when we talk about this word social justice, right? A part of social justice deals with economic justice and economic injustice. And so I know for the both of you, you guys have been front and center in dealing with the issue of economic injustice, particularly as it deals with small businesses. And as I said in the lead, Lisa, when we talk about small businesses, of course, the lifeblood of the Bronx, the lifeblood of America, but give us an estimation as to how small businesses have been impacted through this COVID-19 pandemic here in the Bronx.
Well, I have to tell you that they have fared horribly. Unfortunately, they, as you pointed out, they were already struggling to begin with. The regulations, bills, legislation that have been coming across for the last 2 years had already started building towards the economic hardship. COVID-19 hit. There were a lot of small businesses. And when we say small businesses, we're really addressing micro businesses, anything under 10 employees, 20, which make up the majority. I almost want to say it makes up about 80, 85, if not higher percent of the businesses in our borough. So closing made it horrible. And then you have the insurances that weren't being covered, and the amount of information being released on a daily basis, state, federal. A lot of businesses, one, didn't understand it. Two, try to access it with no success. And now you're starting to reopen, but the debt is there. We've had people who applied for the Federal CARES Act, the PPP, and actually returned the money because they did not understand the rules and regulations. And those who didn't apply didn't know about it, believe it or not. As much as people are saying, are you kidding me? It's been all over the place. You really have to have targeted access and targeted reach to be able to get to these very small businesses. And what we have found is that the technical divide is larger than we ever expected.
Yeah, the technical divide is huge. That big digital divide has been a big problem just for residents. And when you talk about businesses and business owners, a big problem. Michael, I'll bring you in now and talk a little bit about race, right? I talked at the beginning of the segment about many of the businesses impacted, African-American, Hispanic, immigrant. And so in a place like Third Avenue, which is for many who may not be from, the city or not or from the Bronx, who knows, Third Avenue is a huge, diverse, multicultural place that is filled with a lot of minorities and at the same time, a lot of minority businesses. Is there a concern that as you open your doors and we reopen, that Third Avenue will look pretty vacant?
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail right on the head. I think that Third Avenue, like many of our commercial districts, are going to be facing some pretty drastic challenges. Not only with bringing businesses back, but with understanding the new landscape of what is retail. We've always, our bread and butter as a commercial district has always been our ground floor retail. And that's been challenged and threatened by the rise of e-commerce and big box retail. But now we have COVID-19, which is threatening those businesses that have been able to hold on. And I think, it's really important when we take a look at race that, we do a deep dive into the Bronx. And, the Bronx has seen 20 years of unprecedented growth, reductions in unemployment, increase in GDP, all of these really milestone attributes. However, I think the question is, those advances have not touched everyone, and they've left large swaths of our community out of the loop. And not everyone has benefited from that. And a lot of those people who have not benefited are businesses owned by people of color and women. So I think when we take a look at this, we have to really do a deep reflection on what can we do to systems and structures to ensure that folks are getting their fair share and that businesses are better positioned to grow, even though times are challenging. I think we all have to just look at the reality and say times are challenging, and they're going to be a lot challenging for at least the next 2 years. But what can we do to assist those businesses and push them towards a more equitable resource path?
Yeah. Lisa, jump in with me and share about minorities in business. We know that there's the MWBE, and that deals with minorities and women in businesses. And I want you to give for our viewers a little bit of an understanding about MWBE. But I know there's a great concern because there's supposed to be what's called, when contracts are out there, MWBE utilization goals. And many times those aren't met. So what are you finding by way of MWBE, and how effective has it been in the borough? And then also talk to me a little bit about those utilization rates and kind of familiarize our viewers a little bit.
Absolutely. So the certification really relies on being minority owned and or women owned. And here at the Chamber, we certified over the course of last year, we've probably certified about 20, 25 businesses. Over the course of the Chamber, they've certified probably hundreds of businesses. What does that mean? That means that you're put on a list, and it's giving you an opportunity for minority-owned businesses to be able to access bigger contracts or contracts with the city of New York. And I'm talking across all agencies, and there's plenty of them. What has been the problem? The biggest problem, and I was a consultant prior in my previous life, I was minority-owned, sole proprietor, and, I had it for over 10 years, never received one contract. So I speak from experience and telling you that these contracts are written in such a way that they're not meant for the small mom and pops.
Let me jump in. You said you never received one contract, but let me get to the key question.
Yes.
How many contracts did you fill out?
About 4 that I knew that I semi-qualified for. Okay. And believe it or not, those came from bigger corporations, and I'm not going to get into names, that usually are the ones that get these contracts, and then they don't meet the threshold. So the city of New York has any construction, we'll go there, any construction or business that you do with the city of New York, 25% of that should be covered by a minority-owned business. That's the threshold. The state has a similar numbers. How they're meeting them are huge minority-owned businesses, right? And you're talking businesses that have 20, 30, 40, 100, 200, which is considered small businesses. In reality, back to the point what I said prior to when we were having this discussion earlier, is that that's not the case for the Bronx. The Bronx is micro businesses who are certified. And that means that their balance sheets and their numbers don't meet the criteria for some of these contracts. So they either have to go under a subcontractor, these mega companies who decide whether or not you want to make you a subcontractor under them, or the city meets its numbers and the state meets its numbers with these massive conglomerates that are minority owned. And so the ratio is very small. We get complaints all the time on how to access. Over the course of the last year, the Department of Education has done a good job in trying to recruit. But the one thing that's not said when you certified is, how do you get these contracts when you're little? How do you get this contract if you make under $1 million? Why should you certify? If we're promising you contracts and opportunities, then something's got to give on the other end. We're doing the paperwork, we're setting up the businesses, the micro businesses for success. And there should be a larger amount of businesses, minority owned, women, immigrant. This is what the core of our borough is made of, should have access to it, and they do not. And that's been an uphill battle for us, but one that we're not going to stay quiet on.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, I'm coming to you now. Talk to me about Third Avenue Bid. I mean, you guys have a race and equity initiative. Share with us a little bit about your this new initiative?
Sure. So the Race and Equity Initiative started as part of Third Avenue Business Improvement District's strategic planning efforts. We do the strategic plan every year, and we renew our commitment to various efforts. So this started last October, but was accelerated with the murder of George Floyd and the civil unrest that's been happening throughout the nation. And part of that was, really taking a hard look at Third Avenue Business Improvement District and business improvement districts in general, and doing a deep dive on our relationship with city agencies like NYPD, or our relationship with the broader community. Traditionally, bid membership is very strict to property owners and small businesses within the bid boundary. However, I think that begs the question is, as we re-examine business improvement districts, should we also re-examine membership? When we take a look at Third Avenue bid, we're 100% commercial. We have no residential. We're a solid commercial district, yet roughly 450,000 people walk on our sidewalks every day. So I think, examining that, doing a deep dive on the history of the Bronx, the history of business improvement districts, and educating ourselves before we even dare educate other people is the first step. But then I think there are other, tangible things that we can do. To Lisa's point, just last week, actually, the board of directors at Third Avenue Bid increased our MWBE purchasing requirement internally. So usually we have a 30% purchasing requirement for MWBEs. We've increased that now to 60%, with an advancement of trying to get as many local firms as possible. But to Lisa's point, in addition to small and micro businesses not having access to those larger contracts, there's huge insurance barriers for MWBE firms, and that's usually why the big firms get them, because the big firms can have the $15 or $25 million or $35 million insurance policy, but that small startup MWBE doesn't have that access, and when it comes down to it, the insurance costs more than the actual job. So there's that benefit and cost analysis that folks have to do. So in addition to things like shifting budgetary items, because I think your budget is your living document, which kind of sets up the goals for the organization. We've undergone an equity audit. We've hired a senior advisor for race and equity internally, and we're looking to create a resident board or a resident council to broaden our reach into the community. And some of the goals that we're talking through are also goals that are being looked at a citywide level to see if other bids throughout New York City's network would start adopting some of these requirements or guidelines to really help address the issues. And I think race and equity have always been there. I just think we haven't talked about them, and we haven't given them the spotlight that they deserve. And I think that's a problem that we all have to collectively work to address.
Lisa, being the chair of the president of the Bronx Chamber of Commerce, I want to ask you the question about race. How many times does that come up? Is there conversations that, hey, there aren't enough Black-owned businesses in the borough? Is there a conversation that there aren't enough, of these businesses, given the fact that the borough has this 2 million population, but yet and still, we still don't see reflective in the area of business?
And we don't, and the conversations have been had. The conversations have been ongoing over the course of the years. And the question becomes, why is it? Is it the lack of understanding what it takes to start up a business? Is it the financial understanding of what it is to open up a business? To your point, the majority of our, if not almost the entire borough, is all immigrant minority owned. And so we have been trying as a chamber to figure out the reach. One thing that we have really found during this COVID is that we have not been able collectively, unless you have a bid or a merchant association, have a really deep reach into neighborhoods that are ignored or don't have a leadership of sorts to get them and provide the services. So we have gone outside our membership and try to figure out, how do we reach these individuals who may not understand the system, who need assistance? And there's so many great ideas and entrepreneurs out there, minority, Black-owned businesses or entrepreneurs that start up a business and then do not have the understanding of the capacity to build off of that business. And what we have found is a lot of businesses start up successfully, and within 2 years, they have fallen under, and that is more about understanding finances and bank accounts. And that was part of the reason why PPP, for a lot of these sole proprietors, entrepreneurs of color, lost it, because their banking systems may not fit the criteria of our federal or state government. And that's what we're here for, right? We want to become that access of education. And the Yankees have reached out to us because they have a whole corridor around them of small minority businesses who said, we don't know what's going on. We don't understand it. And they have been incredible in partnering with us and providing us with the third largest law firm in the country to assist our businesses, our small businesses, help them out, capacity building, immigration, unemployment, the whole 9 yards.
That was going to be my question, and you know, about capacity building, because many times you do have people who have good ideas, great intentions, but when we talk about equality and equity, capacity building is going to actually help to bring that about. And you know, I'm looking at businesses and I'm looking at people who are investing money into communities, and I'm wondering if not more money is needed to really talk about, you know, capacity building. So I'm gonna ask this question too. Mike, you can answer that. And also I want you to talk about the survey that's out there that's also designed to help others as well.
Sure. Correct. Yeah, on the capacity side, you know, I think that a lot of businesses start off very strong because they have a great passion for the business, for the idea. Folks know exactly how they want things to look. They know exactly how they want people to feel when they walk in the door. And all of those are major components of a business plan. However, equally, if not more so important, are your legal protections, understanding your lease, understanding your finances, having access to capital if you're not bringing in your own capital. All of those things, and those items actually underscore systemic racism that's existed in our borough. You have, and you know, this is largely white owners who have had access to money. They've had access to legal resources. They've had access to financing for generations, and they've been able to build on their wealth. Our communities and our people of color have not had that access, whether it's due to systemic racism, due to redlining, et cetera. They have not had that access, so they have not been able to build generational wealth or capacity. So I think in order to get really to the root of it, we've got to go there and, you know, say, yes, ideas are great. You know, having a passion for your business is great, but how do we ensure that our communities of color have the capacity and the access to those resources? And I think that's where the chamber and business improvement districts become very important. As you, for example, Third Avenue bid with the Bronx Community Relief Effort, we're doing a small business relief grant of up to $25,000 for business owners. And that's going to eventually pivot to an entrepreneurial startup program over the next few months. You know, Lisa and her team have been doing a tremendous amount of capacity building and training across the spectrum. And I believe Lisa has a survey that was just recently released that's really doing a deep dive on what business needs are. So Lisa, I don't know if you want to chat about that for a minute.
Absolutely want to chat about it, because we have really been pushing hard on this survey. You can find it on bronxneedsbusiness.org. Call us. It is on there. And the reason why this is so important is because of the inequities for our borough. It started when the city released funding and the borough only received 1% to 3%. That started the outcry of inequity. And when we realized the amount of PPP not being released into our borough, again, it's our borough who has always been hit hard. So what we've done with this survey is really about providing resources. And I'm asking every business out there to fill it out, because what it brings to the attention, and fill it out completely. Did you apply? Did you not get the money? Who was there to assist you? Are you minority owned? Have you reached out? What type of resources are there? What type of insurance? It goes, take 10 minutes. But what happens is after we get all that information, we've got hard data to take to our elected officials, city, state, federal, and make them aware of what our borough needs collectively. And try to do that fair share. Try to figure out what is it that our borough is so different than any other borough that we're always left behind. And it's time to put a stop to that. And this is a perfect opportunity to do that.
Well, unfortunately, we have to put a stop to this interview. Great information, great conversation. Thank you. We're going to continue to monitor this. And as you continue to get new developments, please let us know that we might be able to also share your voice and also let our residents know exactly what is going on in a very, very, very important matter that's affecting so many people. Thank you so much, Lisa and Michael, for being with us.
Thank you for having us. It's great.
All
Appreciate it.
right. All right. Well, listen, we got to end it with Lisa and Michael, but we're not ending the show. We still have more to come. What we're going to do is we're going to take a break, and we've got more coming up right after this.